in the Zoom room. We're glad to have everyone here. We just are constantly amazed at every Friday night how some of you are just consistently here every weekend, and we really appreciate that. So, and for the benefit of those that are joining us for the first time, we always like to start out and tell you just a little bit about who we are. Indiana Adoptee Network. We've been around for about 4 years. We host an annual national conference in Indianapolis, which will be virtual this year. We do partner with other nonprofits. We support adoptee rights, causes, and education. Our December holiday newsletter will be coming out on the 15th of this month. So you can check us out on Facebook and check out our website as well. And then we have a little disclaimer before we begin. I always like to share.
All righty, so everybody will just remain on mute, and then you guys can unlock your microphone during the Q&A. You can also raise your hand virtually when we're in our chat or in the chat. This is a public meeting with no guarantee that information or identity is confidential. The presentation portion of this event is recorded and shared on our YouTube channel. We do not record the Q&A. If you're experiencing a serious mental health event or suicidal thoughts, please contact a licensed professional or the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255.
Thank you, Pam.
You are welcome.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to introduce our spotlight guest. We have Renee Gelin here from Florida. She's the founder of Saving Our Sisters. And Renee has an interesting story to share with us about how she began her not-for-profit and how she is helping expectant mothers save their newborns from unnecessary adoption. So it's my pleasure to welcome our friend and fellow sister, Renee.
Thanks. I am so glad to be here and see so many people. Hi, Linda and Keith, and it's great. It's good. I miss all you guys. It's so hard being not connected. So for those of you who don't know who I am or are new to SOS or Saving Our Sisters, my story started in 2009. I moved down to Florida, cross country. I was single parenting my daughter at the time, and I ended up meeting my now husband, then boyfriend. We became pregnant really relatively quickly in our relationship. So we were both in our 40s, not expecting to get pregnant the first time. Like, that's unheard of. And that's what happened. And everything was fine up until I got pretty sick and needed some medication. I was doing some contract work, and I had a high deductible health insurance policy that I was paying out of pocket for that was starting to deny my prenatal claims. So it was the craziest thing. I was like, what are you talking about? You're not like paying I don't have a maternity rider. I'm like, what are you talking about? And so by the time I figured out, what was going on, I was down the road, and I was sick with hyperemesis. And if you're not familiar with what hyperemesis gravidarum is, it's basically all night and all day morning sickness. So you are just, and it's varying degrees. So I didn't actually, I wasn't getting vomiting or, throwing up, but there are moms that really do go through that. Any kind of a stressful pregnancy, they end up in the hospital and really have to be on IV and to get rehab. And so I needed this medication, and she wrote out the script, and I went, of course, to the pharmacy to pick it up, and the pharmacist says, well, you don't have insurance. The insurance denied it. It'll be $600. And I said, I just lost it. And talking with my then boyfriend, explained to him what was going on and moving across the country, not having a lot of support here and that type of thing. And he wasn't really able to help. His identity was stolen. There was like just the perfect storm of everything was just a mess. And So I ended up getting her to write a generic, and that was cheaper, but I still had to go through and pay cash for all my prenatal visits and everything and go through that whole thing. It was really stressful. And then I was contracting. So if I'm not at work, I don't get paid. So I literally had to have that medication, and it was just a mess. So, um, I started to get really stressed. Our relationship obviously was stressed being new. He's like, who is this crazy woman? Like, I don't want any of that. And, so it just got really, really strained. And I reached out to an adoption agency, did the old Google search, just like everybody does. And um, back at that time, and this was in 2010, I there wasn't a lot. Facebook had just come out. There's not a lot of information out there. There's some, but it's of course all the happy adoption stories and all the adoption agencies and that kind of thing. So, I go through and connect. I didn't really connect and really get involved in that. I didn't need money, right? I just needed somebody to really tell me to sit down and just chill out. And, some of my stress was really, what am I going to do after the baby comes? I don't have any support here. I had my neighbors watching my daughter already. She was 7 at the time. And now where am I going to put a baby, and how am I going to pay that, newborn daycare fee and all the stuff that goes with that? And then if he's not able to help, here I am doing, 2 on my own, and I wasn't getting support from my oldest father either. So it was a really bad, perfect storm. And I ended up, going through, I finally at about 12 days before my son was born, I literally threw in the towel and said, okay, fine, let me look at those stupid books and, pick somebody. And I did. And, I tried to hold out basically as long as I could, because I really didn't want to do this, but I just didn't know how I was going to navigate afterwards. Plus, not having the money to pay for a C-section, it was like 20 grand. And I called everybody trying to make, some cash deals, right? Cash is cheaper and all that. Well, cash isn't cheaper when you're having a baby. It's like the hospital still wanted 8,000, and the doctor needed theirs, and the anesthesiologist needed his, and it was like $15,000. I'm like, I don't have that. So it was just stress. A lot of situations, everything in that situation just kind of all came together. So they end up showing up, and they're at the hospital, and all of these things were happening while I was going through that, and just trying to get through literally day by day, right? I could not, I needed that medication. I couldn't do anything other than get into work and make sure that I was getting paid to continue to keep myself above water, and my daughter. And so it was just, and then you kind of feel like you're playing beat the clock, right? This due date is coming, and you're there, and you're trying to figure all of this out. And I literally had no plan. And I'll tell you a little bit about why that's important in a minute. But I'm a planner. It's what my day job is. It's how I literally do everything. So it was very, very hard for me to not have that plan in place and really have that kind of safety net. But so he's born, and they leave the hospital with him 3 days later, and it's just been it was a really, really tough ride. And I describe that time as basically I died. In the next 5 weeks, I died. The old Renee died. And now you have me with my online persona, which started out, funny enough, as W's birth mom is what I was going on. Facebook at the time didn't have to have names and all that to it. And then when it finally forced you to have a name, then I picked a persona, right? Because you're afraid of that open adoption closing. So it was supposed to be open. And of course, as I reached out then afterwards looking for support and connecting with other people online, I started to realize that, open adoption isn't me not knowing their name, their last name, or, me getting pictures, or, getting maybe a text here or there, or an email or whatever. It's really about having a relationship with your child. And so then I kind of realized as I started to reach out and talk to more people and connect with, many other people that are living through this on, as an adoptee or as a mom. And I realized that, there's so much misinformation out there, and I really felt like I was had and, completely deceived out of my son. And I wasn't encouraged to take him home. They gave the old foster care option. You can put him in foster care, and like and then looking back at that now, I can't, it's really hard to describe a crisis pregnancy. I mean, I can tell you all of these things, but really living through that day by day was just, it was really hard. And not knowing who to talk to, the other part, I have a fault of being super independent, which didn't help me in this case. It was a fault. And so asking for help wasn't my forte, but that's one of the first things that I talk to moms about now today. It's like, look, being strong is knowing when to ask for help. And I am living that, and I know that. And, losing him was basically the single regret of my life. It is, I don't live with regrets. I make decisions and I figure stuff out. But this one, I can't figure this out. There's nothing I can do to change it. The damage is done and continuing to be done as we're separated. And I really had to figure out, after I got through my first 5 weeks of just sobbing on the floor and, not doing anything. I wasn't parenting. I wasn't working, as I had a C-section. And so I realized that, I had to do something. And as a little more time passed and all of those things that were in my way seemed to kind of dissipate, and they actually did dissipate. I also had a business that had gone bad in 2008, 2009, like so many other businesses did at that time. And I was buried in debt. I had well over 6 figures in debt. So it was just all of these things piling on and kept piling on. And it was just a really bad situation. I made too much to qualify for Medicare. I didn't have that to pay my medical bill. I mean, it was a disaster. So anyway, at the end of the year, he was born in March of 2011. And at the end of the year, I get this statement from the insurance policy that I had that didn't have maternity insurance on it. And they paid the bill. They paid the whole bill. And it said, I still have it in the box. And it said with no patient responsibility. And I got that in the mail that day, and the gloves came off. Like that was it. I had learned these things over time. At 5 months, we did have a visit with him. We went up to their house and stayed in their home for 5 days. That was excruciating to be there walking on eggshells and, really like being on display with all their family and everybody thinking this is great. And they wanted me to watch this video of them like driving to Florida to get him. And it was just like, I sat there for about 10 seconds and then, ran out of the room. But I mean, it just all that stuff that, even talking to them, they told me how much they paid for him. They told me that if he would have been full Caucasian, that he would have been $10,000 more. I mean, the things that I learned were just devastating to realize kind of that this is about money. This is about, getting people a baby who want a baby. And that's it. And about cashing that check. And I mean, I was floored. I had no idea. I literally had no idea. Didn't know anybody who was adopted. I didn't know anybody who had lost a child to adoption. I knew nothing about anything. And I just felt like I was literally a lamb led to slaughter. And there was a time when it was really hard for me to hear that, there's so much information out there and, all of this. But again, I just go back to being in a crisis pregnancy. I can't explain it to you. It's like surviving, day by day. And my other 2 pregnancies, I have my oldest daughter, of course. I didn't have any of that. I didn't have, I didn't know what I didn't know, I guess. But single parenting is hard. So I learned, pretty quickly with that whole situation. And I think it scared me. And then I had a bad relationship too. So there's just a lot of things that kind of, can influence you and and then finances and things like that, and not having the support and being away from, family and friends that could really lift you up, if you will. So that's what kind of got me to talking with. I connected with another lady in Kansas. Her name is Lisa Woolsey, and we got talking. And her story and mine are really pretty similar. New relationships. Ended up doing this adoption. Adoption slammed shut, very relatively quickly after, everything happened. Hers was literally, I tell her all the time, she was literally fast tracked. So she was befriended. They were at the doctor visits. They were doing all of these things with everything, to going to dinner, like her and the biological dad were going to dinner with them, and they were just like best friends. And then they came to her hospital room, had a pizza party, took her daughter, and she never heard from them again. Like they literally slammed the door immediately. And that was my biggest fear at the beginning. So I created this online thing thinking I'd be able to kind of keep it under wraps. But as time progressed, and my son is going to be 10, or 10. Yeah, I realized that I can't be quiet anymore. Like this, if I'm going to stop this and make a difference, then I have to start telling this, and I have to suck it up. I went through this and I made this decision, and I'm not okay with it. And I have to basically voice that, because I can't just sit back. Silence is acceptance for me. And I'm not going to do that. I don't do that in my, personal life. I don't do that in my business life. And I can't do it here. It's too, it's too detrimental to too many other people and families that really don't need to be separated if they have the right support and the right information. So Lisa and I got talking. We're like, we need to stop this. We need to figure out a way to stop this. And so we just started reaching out online. I did more online things just because of single parenting and stuff like that. And she did more really on the ground. So she kind of developed the whole Sister on the Ground program by living it and, taking moms into her home and just flipping her church into being a family preservation based church. So if anybody came to, her church and said, I'm considering adoption or I'm in a crisis pregnancy, they sent her to Lisa, and Lisa would, help her. She still does that today. So that's, we kind of took on different roles. And then as time grew, I started connecting with more and more people and really just started to listen and hear. I came out of the gate, like the first 2 years, I will admit, I was brutal. I was brutal. I was really, really angry, and rightly so. So communicating wasn't the best process, but what kind of was a turning point for me was when I lost a mom. I was talking to her, and she's like, you have a lot of stuff. She's like, okay, I can't take that from you. So really what I've had to do over the years is kind of curtail how to deliver the message, and really to be considerate of what their situation is. So what we've kind of done at SOS and built out over time is really just, we figured out that what we have to do is kind of do what the adoption agencies do, but do it with family preservation in mind. So instead of, hearing their whole story and all of their dirty laundry and all of their issues, and, instead of taking that information and kind of using it against them when they start to waver and maybe say, oh, I don't know if I can do this, we build them up and keep saying, you can do this. Like, this is how you can do this. I mean, we don't lie to them and tell them that it's going to be easy, because it's not, especially if they're parenting 3 other kids. But that's the whole point of the Sister on the Ground piece, is to really hook them up and connect them with somebody that can be there for them and find a local resource or go get things for them, from their network. We've had, sisters on the ground, like fill up their car with baby goods from just the people that they know. I mean, it's really been incredible what this has kind of taken on. And so as time goes on, so we have the first visit, back to my story, we have the first visit at 5 months. And then we have another visit at 16 months. And we went up there for 5 months, my daughter and I did. And then they came here to our house for about a week. It's like 5 days, I think. And it was good. It was just really hard. You know, how do you watch somebody raise your kid, and what do I do? Like, do I step in? Do I not? Is he my son? He doesn't come to me. Like, it was just horrible. It was horrible. And I had a hard time. So I was reaching out to the people that I, had connected with over time for support, so I could kind of hold it together. And, after she had left, she kind of, threw that back at me and said, well, you were on your phone a lot. And I was like, okay, I'm trying not to lose my shiz here, lady. I mean, give you a little bit of consideration. But, it's just that made me realize that the perspective and their perspective on it is completely different than mine. Their experience is completely different. So, as I was kind of going through all of this, I started to, because we were open. I mean, we were very open, and I started to kind of talk through things with them and kind of explain some things with them and talk through things and find out things. And then it got really uncomfortable for them, because it got real as to kind of what happened and how it was really an unnecessary adoption. Like, I just needed somebody to tell me to calm down and to help me maybe find a daycare and find, whatever. I had baby stuff. I literally, packed their SUV with stuff that I had, collected for him over months. And they knew. And so then, 3 months later, I get the call from Gladney that they're closing the adoption, and I asked for it in writing. And of course they said no, and this was over the phone. And now I do everything in writing with them. I do that for my day job too, but it's so funny. I talk about this stuff, and my job is to go into businesses and learn their process and fix it, make them more efficient, make their employees more productive. And I didn't have the wherewithal about me to do that with this business, because it's absolutely a business. And I'm gonna just, let me share this here. So I did, so I just put a little slide up here about me. Those are my two girls. Y'all can see my screen? Yeah, okay, great. So those are my two girls and my husband now. And my day job is, let's see if I can find that here. Sorry. This is my slide for my day job. So I downplay it to 20 years because I don't want to tell everybody how old I am. But 20 years around doing this kind of work and literally going into businesses, learning what they do. I've done everything from, McDonald's company that designs McDonald's kitchens and works on their menu and all that kind of stuff, to the big four. I've been at two of the big four. Financial backgrounds, any kind of global business, any kind of local, nationwide business. That's what I do. I go in and kind of pick all of these processes apart and figure out, what they do. This is I just implemented this project. I designed and implemented this. This is one of my clients' processes of what they're doing. It's pretty complicated stuff. And what I didn't do is do that with this business. And I didn't have the time. I was literally just trying to get through the day and make sure I was working and getting paid and paying my bills. And so, I went through and I thought, I'm going to do this for this adoption industry. I'm going to just see if I can come up with something. And you're not meant to read this. You're not meant to read it. It's very small. And I did that for a reason. The point of this slide is to really talk about what's happening in the middle of the slide. You can see that there's a lot of activity right here. And this activity all sits with the adoption facilitators, the adoption entities, everybody who's connected with the agencies and the adoption entities, the attorneys, the birth parent workers, whatever they call themselves, the social workers. And then on the outskirts, you have, mom starting things up here. She's kind of that input, if you will, right? And she gets one connection in. And what happens on the end is a medical provider gets involved, ICPC is involved, the court's involved, the adoption attorney or some other adoption representative is involved, and never the two shall meet. You see, this up here never touches down here. So these people in the middle run the show. They know the ins and outs, they know the court system, they know the process, they know the state laws, they know everything about it. And, as I've worked with moms kind of over these last 10 years, this is a problem because it's not only a problem for moms, it's also a problem for adoptive parents because everybody is relying on the people who are collecting the paycheck and who know the process. And the process is not transparent. That's the other problem. And that's what we're trying to do at SOS is really educate people and moms of what this really looks like when you connect with an adoption agency. There are adoption agencies out there that do help with parenting. They're very few, and who don't harass moms for deciding to parent. Again, very few, but it's not their incentive. They're not incentivized by that. They're incentivized by separating mom and baby, and they do it. They do it very well, and they have software that they can purchase. There's actually a software company out there that literally caters to adoption agencies, and they help them with SEO, search engine optimization. It's a business. This is a complete and total business. There's no money in friendly preservation either, which is the other challenge that we have, right? Is that we're volunteers, and so we rely on this network. And I say this all the time that, SOS is not just me. It's not just Lisa. It's literally all of the people who are supporting us and being those sisters on the ground and helping us be able to support moms. The numbers that we've put together over the last few years are mom needs about $1,000 to get through and navigate her crisis because it's a temporary crisis. $1,000. And average adoption is what, 30 to 60? That's a lot of families. So I won't go through this whole thing, but this is another presentation. I see Marcie on here, so she knows this is familiar. And if anybody else was at AKA for the conference, but I just kind of put together of what happens with the mom, what happened with me. I ended up kind of in this situation of I had bills, I had all these things. My relationship wasn't that great. It was brand new. It was strained, and I didn't have a lot of support locally. So, and then I ended up pregnant. So it was just, like I said, the perfect storm. So reaching out to that old Google, right? Everybody does. Where do I go to get my information? And look, Google just popped up because I said Google. It's always listening. So anyway, it's, moms really don't realize kind of what is going on out there and how the deck is literally stacked against them. And how getting the information to make an informed decision is really tough and not easy. So there was a Baylor study that came out too that talks about, and I don't know if many of you know about this, but they did a study, and it came out and basically said that they didn't fully understand. These moms who made this decision, I'm going to tell you, I did not understand what this all was really going to look like and how this was going to work. You know, I mean, I had no idea. This is really, really hard for my family. And, you know, my youngest is now going to be 7, and trying to explain to her that she has a brother that doesn't live with us, and, you know, having my oldest go through that was one of the other reasons that was so hard for her to, you know, have to go through watching this happen and then, you know, be cut off. I mean, she literally lost all trust. I mean, who did she have to trust? You know, that's the other piece of it. And, you know, I had her, you know, go through this and forced her to kind of watch this all from the sidelines, and she didn't have a choice. And then she's at these people's mercy to, you know, believe that they're going to have her brother in her life. And then that rug is pulled out from under her. You know, she was really, really angry. And talking to moms about really thinking about it from their kids' perspective is super important. The adoption agency gave me a book and said, oh, just read this. You know, just read this Sister Sam book and everything will be great. You know, they'll be good as long as you're good. Well, I didn't want to do this, so I was never good. The adoption agency, I call her the puppet, she tried to get me to come and talk at a hospital very shortly after. And I said, I don't think you're going to like what I have to say. And then she knew that she couldn't ask me that anymore. But after I got back from that first visit and learned all of these things from my son's adoptive parents, I called her for 6 weeks straight and wanted to take her to lunch because I had a whole bunch of questions for her because I learned a whole bunch of stuff. And she avoided me like the plague. I never heard from her. But she did send me a text on the 1-year anniversary, and I said, don't text me ever again. I don't need you to remind me. I know exactly what this is this time of year. I know what it is every Christmas. I know what it is every birthday. I got it. I don't need you. So she got my message. So, you know, it's the other big thing that I talk about was, you know, kind of what didn't happen. What didn't happen? I didn't get all of the information to really help me make this informed decision to, you know, you go in to have surgery, right? You're going to have, you know, a surgery. You get all of the risks. They have to give you the risks. They have to say, so they don't get sued, right? So you have to sign a document that says, I assume the risk. Well, that's what relinquishment papers are. You are agreeing to that risk. And so what we try to do is explain the risk, explain that there is literally no guarantee from this perspective. You sign those papers, your revocation period expires, and you have nothing. You don't have the law on your side. You don't have society on your side. Adoption is beautiful. You did a beautiful thing. And, you know, your child's going to get a 2-parent household, and, you know the story. So, you know, it's all of those things that you have to really kind of sit back and make sure that people are being educated. And that's not what's happening today. And that's what we're trying to focus on. And so finally, back to a little bit of my story. After, you know, I've been doing this for a couple of years, I got through my anger stuff, lost that mom, realized I had to start kind of curtailing my message and delivering it a little bit better, right? And not being so abrasive, and not hearing people out too. So I was able to do that, and I connected with Cub and Patty online, and now we've met in person. But she convinced me to come and speak for the first time in 2014 at a Cub retreat, and it took a lot. I mean, I was in the closet. Like, I didn't come out. I was so scared. And like, I totally procrastinated on any presentation I did. And I literally blew into the hotel that morning and went and sat in a room and finished up my presentation and got up and, you know, talked in front of everybody. And it was, you know, it felt really good to kind of take the control back that I didn't have. that I lost. I lost this control in this situation, and it just really gave me I got my voice back, and it felt good. Um, and so that just kind of kicked it off. And then I met Carolyn Espina. She runs New Life Center for Family Preservation in Lakeland, Florida, down here, which is about an hour from me. And we spoke, at the same conference that same weekend. And it was kind of cool to be, have somebody else that was kind of kicking off something. She's an adoptee actually, and started this organization that she has, a nonprofit, and she's doing really well. She focuses on, she actually has a home that she rents, and takes moms into that and works with them, and works with moms who are in jail, and have DCF involvement. And it's just a lot more than what we do here at SOS. At SOS, really my vision and kind of our vision and focus, Lisa and I talking about this, is really our demographic, right? Where we were just in a crisis situation that was temporary, and ended up, with the wrong advice and the wrong, making the wrong decision. And so our demographic is really the voluntary, right? We don't get involved with any DCF or CPS cases. We just cannot take those on from a volunteer perspective. They're so time consuming. That whole system is just a disaster. Again, another industry funded by the federal government with AFSA and Title IV funding, which is tied into Social Security. If you don't know about it, I have some links I can share with you if you want about that, but it's quite amazing. People don't understand that. You tell them it's tied into Social Security, and they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, let me send you the information. It's literally tied into that. And they pay the states to, take and maintain the number of children in care. It's the craziest thing. So, and they use it as revenue. So the other issue with this industry is kind of like, when people are policing themselves. That's really what's happening here. There's nobody policing this industry. There's no oversight on this. The laws are different in every single state in the US, much less the world, and there's no consequences for any of this, for anything that is not happening. So I'll tell you a couple of different stories. We had one mom in Georgia. So we've gotten some revocations. I don't know if you're familiar with all of that. I'll tell you a little bit. So some of the things that we do this counseling up front. I mean, our ideal is to get in connection with moms while they're pregnant, not in a situation where, for example, they've signed their revocation papers and they're in their revocation period and they have to worry about how are they going to get their baby back. We do those. We do help with those, and they're like extremely emotional and stressful and exciting, like all at the same time, and draining. But we want to get to them first and try to educate them. But sometimes that doesn't always happen. So we've connected with a couple of moms. This mom in Georgia, she reached out to us and said, look, I signed the papers on Monday. I think this was or Sunday. And then it was Monday that she got a hold of us. And basically we helped her write a revocation letter and had her send it to the attorney. And what I try to do with them is explain to them that you don't talk to them on the phone, because it's basically a manipulative situation. They're easily manipulated. They've been connected potentially with prospective adoptive parents that they've built a relationship with, and they're going to crash their world, right? And the guilt trip ensues, right? They've had a failed adoption, right? Every mom that I talk to, when they are connected with prospective adoptive parents, they all get the sob story of the failed adoption. And in my, point of view, that's kind of a win. It's a family preserved, but that's not necessarily what, they are literally in this situation where obligation has been created. Maybe they've taken money as gift, right? And they don't really understand that they don't have to pay that back, because that is coercion. So they can't force you to pay that back. They threaten it, and they do it regularly. They never do it in writing. They do it on the phone. And so one of the reasons that I really just tell them, no, you put in your letter that you only want to be contacted by email or by text. And this guy ended up calling her, leaving a voicemail. It sounds like, you signed your revocation revocation papers on the same day that you signed them. And in Georgia at the time, she had 4 days. So I'm thinking she can do that whenever she wants. Like, why are you questioning her? Like, this is her right. And she has nobody. She didn't have an attorney, of course, right? They're representing both sides. And all of a sudden, as soon as she decides to change her mind, they step out of it. And they literally leave not just the mom to navigate the situation and try to get her baby back, but they also leave the prospective adoptive parents alone to deal with this. So here these people are having to bring back a baby. So you can imagine, like, when this happens, these situations are so emotionally charged on both sides. Mom just wants her baby back. She's, and the prospective adoptive parents are crushed. And so there's nobody there to help them. And so we generally send a sister on the ground with mom. And they have some specific instructions. Basically, no chit chat, right? You stick to business. When did the baby eat? When did the baby last have a diaper change? Has the baby been to the doctor? Like sticking to the focus of the baby. And while that's happening, mom is really supposed to kind of unwrap baby and just make sure baby is good, because they generally will have her sign a release that says, you're not holding the adoption agency or the attorney liable for anything that's happened while the baby was not in your care. So she's releasing them from all liability. So if something's going on with that baby when the baby comes back, it's, they're like washing their hands. They're saying, and they basically put that to her in the same paper that states that she's taking consent or taking custody of her baby back. So they present it to her in a manner of, if you don't sign this, you're not going to get your baby back. So I basically just told them to, cross out that paragraph, or if they force her to sign it, write under your name under duress, so that if something happens, she's got something in writing that she can go back to. Thankfully, nothing has happened to any of the babies, but it's just another like little thing that they do that these moms would literally like have no idea what to do. I wouldn't have to do, know what to do with that. So, but he ended up, as the prospective adoptive parents ended up bringing her daughter back, somebody was, I don't know if it was somebody from the adoption agency, I don't know who this woman was, but she basically called this attorney and said, there's another woman here, and I think that she's giving the baby to another adoption agency for more money. And he called her and left that on her phone in a message. I can play it. It doesn't play really well here, but and the reason he left it in a message is because I was FaceTiming her mom on the phone while she was holding the baby. We were, just talking, and he ended up leaving this message on her phone. Like, if you're, getting this baby back and you're going to another agency, that's criminal. It's against our criminal code, and we will make you pay. Literally, we will make you pay, and you need to make this right. I don't even know what to do with that. I couldn't believe that he left that on a voice message. And then there's other things. There's one case in Indiana that happened last September, not this past September of 2019. So the baby's over a year old now, but mom went into the hospital by ambulance, did not have prenatal care, no drugs, tested out. I saw her medical records. I have them get their medical records too right away so we can understand exactly what happens in the hospital. Things that they wouldn't know to do, just to kind of back up documentation type of thing. But because what happens is if she goes back and tries to get her medical file after she gets into it with the adoption agency, the hospital will not, for example, give her baby's information. So I send them to the hospital immediately to get their baby's medical records and their medical records, and I have them get the full abstract of it. So an abstract meaning it's like complete soup to nuts document of when you walk in the door to when you are discharged. And with my youngest, I was in the hospital 2 days with a C-section. So I was in the OR, right, and all of that. My documents were for 2 days, 300 pages. It had everything in there. And you want that. You want the social worker's notes. You want the nurse's notes. You want everything. So in this particular case, mom didn't have any connections with any adoption agency or anything. A nurse in the hospital calls the adoption agency because mom had mentioned that they were considering adoption. About an hour and a half later, the adoption agency is on the phone and ends up hiring a CASA worker, a county CASA worker who's been a CASA worker for 20 years, an attorney, and her to represent mom and dad. And comes into the hospital 14 hours after she has had her daughter and facilitates the contract between them, both of them, and this CASA worker. So the CASA worker's on the phone, has never met these two clients of hers, and then doesn't have them sign a conflict of interest, right? If you're representing two people as an attorney, that's a problem. So if one wants the baby back and the other one doesn't, she's in a pickle as an attorney. Who do I represent? And they have mom sign 44 pages of documents as she's sitting in her hospital bed, and don't give her any copies. So she finds us, a few days later, and she's like, I want my baby back, all this. And I said, well, what happened? She explains this story to me. And I have her get all this documentation and all of that. We talked to an attorney up there and kind of putting all of this together. It takes a little while to put all this stuff together for her to get to the hospital to get her medical records. And they had a court hearing. So she signed the documents at 14 hours after her baby was born, which is legal in Indiana. And she leaves the hospital 3 hours later. So 17 hours after she has had a baby, she's out of the hospital and at home. She, about 2 hours after that, starts texting that she wants her baby back, which is her legal right to revoke in Indiana. They have a 30-day revocation period. The catch is what they have to do. Sorry, I gotta shift here. What they have to do in Indiana to get their baby back is go to a best interest hearing. So now she has to go and be judged to get her baby back, to prove that she's good enough, basically. So they end up, she's texting 2 hours after there. She texts throughout the evening that she wants her baby back. The CASA worker, who's her attorney, contacts the adoption agency attorney and tells him that she wants her baby back. Well, the next thing you know, there's a court hearing by phone. This is now COVID, I think. No, this was pre-COVID. But there's a court hearing by phone, and they have everybody on the phone. Her attorney texts her a phone number and says, you should dial into this. It was the Supreme Court number, whatever. So she gets into this hearing, and they literally just don't let her talk. She wants her baby back, and they don't do a best interest hearing. They just terminate her rights. The adoption agency workers had been asked, so how long have you worked with this mom? And she said, 21 hours. 21 hours. So, and mom had no, that attorney basically stepped out in her agreement that she had them sign. She basically had them sign and saying that they realized that she was their attorney only for an adoption. So if they wanted to do anything else, like revoke, she was stepping out. And that's what she did. Except for she was in the hearing and talking to the judge, which she should not have been. She should have withdrawn and not been there. So it's just, I could go on and on. There's so many stories like that over the years. It's just, it's bad. What's happening out there is bad. There is literally, it's the wild, wild west. I call it the wild, wild west. And there's nobody ensuring that these people are following the laws, and there's no consequences. So if I can't find an attorney, which I don't find an attorney generally, you know, we've got a handful of attorneys that can help with sending letters and things like that. But really, to take a case like this, you know, the moms who are um, considering adoption are, you know, they're in financial hardship. Like they don't have the money, so they're not going to get an attorney. I got a mom I connected with about 6 weeks ago. She's in Texas. She, all these are all complicated stories, but she's married. She ended up having an affair, gets pregnant. Her husband doesn't know she's pregnant. I guess she didn't show or whatever up until the end. Ends up reaching out into some Facebook group with some military wives group. And next thing you know, she's arranging for an adoption with this woman through this Facebook group. And the woman, she goes into labor. The woman drives, you know, 8 hours across Texas. This is in Texas, from one military base to another, and shows up with these documents, calls a notary to come to the hospital, presents to the notary like everybody's friends and they all know what they're doing. And this mom signs relinquishment papers in the hospital with nobody. There's no attorney, there's no adoption agency, and it's in the hospital room. Like, why are these hospitals allowing this stuff to happen on their property? I mean, it's just it's the craziest thing ever. I don't, if somebody's transacting business on my property, I'm going to be liable, but they, you know, allow these people in to do this stuff and have these things, you know, happening on their property. It's mind boggling, and it's accepted. You know, hospital rooms are given out to prospective adoptive parents for free. So they can have a room across the hall for free if there's space. So we've had to have actually some prospective adoptive parents kicked out of the hospital due to COVID, because if you think about it, it's a double standard. Mom can't have her support person there, but the prospective adoptive parents can be there. What? It doesn't make sense. Like, this is the stuff that's happening and nobody calls it out. It's the craziest thing ever. So I want to talk about one other thing that we do that I don't know what I would do without, or that we would do without. Katie Burns is on the board of directors for Saving Our Sisters, and she is the sole person behind this website called the Family Preservation Project. And if you have not been to this website, please share it everywhere, because we send all of our moms here initially. You know, social workers, and if any of you are social workers, you'll know that there is no place for you to go for resources. You're on your own. You are left on your own to navigate and find resources for your clients. And it's the craziest thing to me. So what Katie has done is put so much work into this. It's mind-boggling, and she doesn't sleep like me, but she is out here researching tons and tons of different, you know, anything from diaper banks to food banks to housing support to any kind of resources, anything that you can find. So if there's anything in your area that that you know of that is family preservation focused, she researches all of these resources as well. She goes out to their websites. She'll call them sometimes and literally look for them mentioning adoption. So if there's a mention of adoption out of the gate, that's a problem, right? That's a red flag. You want it to be a balanced, right, resource site. So she talks about all of these things. Of course, there's links out here to SOS, excuse me. But you can search by state. So this is the familypreservationproject.com. I can post this in the chat too. Where is it? There we go. I'm sorry if you're chatting me. I'm too busy talking. We'll get to it. we'll get to it afterwards. But just looking in here, let's just go to Florida. But she literally just goes out here and researches everything. And does so much work on this. It's just really, it's a lot. And so anything from medical, we did start to connect recently with some doulas, some family preservation focused doulas and midwives. It's been a great thing. We had a mom in Missouri actually this past September that needed help, and she got it. We hooked her up with a doula that was local, and because she has that license, the hospital basically had to let her in as mom support. It was great. DCS, the other big thing that adoption agencies are doing today that I forgot to mention is they call CPS as soon as mom decides she wants to parent. So they try to force the adoption by getting DCF involved or CPS involved. And so, what we basically do as soon as we connect with them is explain to them that, look, we need to set you up with somebody locally who knows, who can be there for you, like literally be there, because they show up. CPS shows up generally the next day or 2 days after they're ringing her phone off the hook trying to get to her into her house. It's bad stuff. So and one of the other reasons that they do that is because what's happening is, infant adoption is becoming more and more rare, right? And so they are partnering with the state. The adoption agencies they're getting licensed to do foster placements. Everybody knows that, for example, Bethany is that and has been dealing with the crisis at the border, right? They were involved in a lot of that separation and kind of getting those kids across the country and everywhere else. But they are partnering with the state. So they kind of have these relationships already with the people working at the state. And again, it's a business, it's relationships, and they'll try to force that placement to somehow get their hand in the pie, right? So if it's not through an infant adoption, they'll try to force it and literally tell the state, hey, I have a placement, right? Because their prospective adoptive parents that they had are already, home study approved and all of that, they're ready to go. So they try to get that placement that way. And then of course go through the process of delay to give the baby back, and then claim the best, interest of the child. That's the name of it. There's actually what we found. I've been helping actually a lot of dads. You'll see a listing out here to the Putative Fathers Registry. Each state has that. I don't know if any of you know what that is, but basically unmarried dads do not have rights in the United States, or in any state really. So what they have to do is register on this registry to make sure that they, if they have relations with a woman, right, and there's a baby that comes out of that, he is supposed to file on this registry and tell the state that I had sex with this woman, and if there's a baby that goes up for adoption, I want to know about it. So I don't know who's going to do that, but I mean, that's kind of their way to say, and I talk about the industry when I say they, that's their way of saying, look, we've got this covered. They have a way to, exercise their rights if they need to. But if anybody's been, in this kind of a situation before, you can Google a bunch of different cases out there. Chris, oh, goodness, what is his name? Somebody help me. He runs the Sky's the Limit, and he basically helps dads fight in court. But while I was helping a dad last year, I found out that there is actually a course. So attorneys have to take continuing education, just like social workers and any other license holders. You want to stay up to date on your accreditation and your licenses and things. And there's a course that was written by some attorneys in a continuing education course in Indiana, who basically wrote a course and they're telling other attorneys how to fight a contested adoption. I bought it. It's $27. I bought it. I signed up and bought it. So I know the name of the game is delay. Like I said, file every single paper under the sun that you can. And that's what they're going to do. They're going to just drain you in every way possible. That means I'm talking financially, especially, emotionally, mentally, until, the other thing that they generally will come back with these dads is saying, well, we'll guarantee you an open adoption. And we all know that there's no such thing as guaranteeing or enforcing an open adoption. So it's just that vicious cycle that it's, again, nobody is, doing any policing of this. The notary who had facilitated an adoption in a hospital room 6 weeks ago, what is the recourse for that mom? Is she going to file a complaint against a notary? That's not going to get her baby back. We've done that. I can't tell you how many times. It doesn't do anything.
Renee, I'm going to interrupt here if I may, just for a second, in the interest of time. I know we've got a lot of questions and a lot of comments.
Okay.
If
Yeah, we can go to that.
Yeah, go ahead and who would like to ask? Because I know we've got some questions in the chat room.
Yep. So I'll wrap it up. So basically, that's it. What I want to encourage you all to do is, this is the website. So savingoursistersadoption.org. There's a couple of buttons here. This give help. If you are interested in being a sister on the ground, we would love for you to sign up on our list and be a volunteer. So we only reach out basically when we have a mom that we have vetted first. So we do a lot of the work up front. We talk to them, make sure that it's a case that we can help with, because unfortunately we can't help with every one of them. Some of these, cases are just above us, unfortunately. And so you may not hear anything from us, but this list is very active and it's getting very long. So we've got sisters on the ground in every state now, and we would love to have more. But we can use all the help that we can get. This is not just one person. It's not just me. This is 5 generations. It took me 2 days to get this baby. It was a no sleep couple of 48 hours, but we got her back. But anyway, we would love to have you sign up, and let's go to questions.
Somebody want to start the first question? You guys are quiet tonight.
I'll start. Is your biggest need like financial?
I will be completely honest. We are so very blessed with financial. We are good. I don't do a lot of fundraising out there. We are very lucky that we have so many people that donate. We do the Facebook fundraisers. Facebook doesn't take any money off of that top. They do take your information, of course, right? But we are good. We of course always would appreciate donations, but really being that sister on the ground and kind of building that network is really where we want to get this word out. And all we ask of you as sisters on the ground is just to kind of be ready, and timing is everything. We've had sisters on the ground that we've contacted and they've like, you know what, I had one lady, she's out of town, and she actually reached out to the mom in Georgia that I was telling you about, that we helped her recover her baby. She sent her husband to go buy a car seat and show up. Aww. And he was there. That's what we need.
How about a list of lawyers, Renee? Do you need a list of lawyers?
I need a lot of lawyers.
Mhm.
I need a lot of lawyers with really big hearts. um, it's so hard to get attorneys into the space. You know, there's so much educating that needs to be done. Um, they don't believe that this stuff is happening. Like society, right? Society doesn't believe that these adoption agencies and adoption attorneys are calling CPS, but they are. And you know, it's so hard. But yeah, I do have a few attorneys that you know, I can reach out to, but again, very few and far between, Marcie, even with, you know, the situation that we had 6 weeks ago where I was kind of begging for that attorney to, you know, can somebody help
Mhm.
me?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's critical to have that support network, and it's not just about money. Sometimes, yeah, it's about people who are believing you and are willing to help.
Yep. Exactly.
Hi there. I'd like to just ask a question about, you mentioned that you include a lot of information for the expectant moms so that they're fully informed about what to expect in the process. And I'm wondering if you can just talk a little bit about any information that you put in there around the trauma that the adopted child experiences. I don't know if you, I might have missed that, but I'd just like to hear what kind of resources you include,
Yeah.
so the moms are aware of the kind of trauma that's left on the child that is relinquished.
That's exactly what I focus on. When I learned about the trauma, I mean, I knew what I went through from my perspective, right? Like crying on the floor for 5 weeks, literally not eating, sleeping, parenting, doing it like doing nothing, right? Dying, really. It was horrible. And then to realize that my son went through that, like that just, it broke my heart. And what we ended up, you know, trying to do is focus on, and we've connected with, you know, a lot of therapists and a lot of people that talk about that. And that's the information that I focus on. In some cases, really, it's scary, right? To talk to them and, you know, explain to them that you are harming your baby. I mean, I harmed my son. And, you know, the one of the main things too is of intent over impact, right? They're two very different things. My intent was not, that's not what my intent was, obviously. But the impact is exactly that. He is traumatized. He will be traumatized. He's suffering. He's still suffering today. And, you know, so that's exactly one of the main things that I focus on is the trauma and what happens. And the great thing about that and what's helped me over the years is listening to so many adoptees. That really has helped a lot. And having the resources, you know, to go and send them to, you know, go listen to Adoptees On, go read Anne Heffron's paper, go, you know, go to your website, Indian Adoptee Network, like go to these places, read what people are saying, listen to the adoptees, and you'll see that we post on our social media that a lot of that, because that is what, you know, you don't want to take that risk. I would never have taken that risk. I wouldn't have done it if I would have had this information and really understood that my son was going to be harmed. There's no way that I ever would have done this to him, ever. So yeah, great question.
Thank
Oh,
you.
yeah,
Thank
a
you.
quick question. Oh, somebody else? Okay. So yeah, quick question. I mean, not that I personally be able to do anything right at the moment, but is it always going to be sisters on the ground? Is it ever going to be brothers and sisters on the ground? Or
No, we
sisters and
need you.
sisters and brothers? You can put the sisters first, but
Yes.
I'm just curious. Do you have guys that help? I don't have time right now, but you know.
Yep. Yeah, that's what the thing is too, right? Is so, you know, for us to do a revocation, we're not doing those every day, right? That's not something like we want to get to them before that. So, you know, you go into a lot of the online communities and everybody is posting SOS stuff really everywhere. And that's great. You know, that's what we want. We want to get to them sooner rather than later. I don't want to have to drop everything and try to do a revocation. I don't want to get that baby separated from mom for 1 second. You know, I want to prevent that if at all possible. So, you know, the timing thing, Keith, is, you know, if it doesn't work for you, that's fine. But, you know, I have emails coming in sometimes from Sisters on the Ground. They're like, I signed up like a year ago and I haven't heard anything. You're not going to hear anything from me. If I
Yeah.
don't need you, right? If we don't need you, all we want you to do is be researching your area and adding to Katie's website. Like, that is what we need. We want to get those resources out to those moms as soon as possible. So
Yeah.
yes, we need you.
Okay, yeah, because I want to tell you definitely, like, I mean, as a person, I respect you very much, and of course the work you're doing, and you know, of course, it's kind of like we all have our own situations. We all talk about what we talk about. We all learn from each other. Like you said, you learn from adoptees. You know, I mean, I learned from everybody. Is because, you know, I just came around 8, 9 years ago when I found out about being adopted. I know we talked about it, and so I just want to say that yeah, it's great. And actually, I was on a live Instagram live the other day, and somebody made a comment about something about, you know, adopting a baby or something like that, and I basically said it's cruel. I said it's cruel to want to adopt a newborn baby and take it away from the family. Like, you know, to me, you know, just put it in simplest terms.
Yep.
You know, I mean, I know, you know about the logistics and all this other. I'm just like, in simplest terms, like, think about how cruel that is to even want to,
Yeah.
you know, take a newborn baby away from somebody, you know. So
Yeah. And it's hard, right? Those prospective adoptive parents, those are like the hardest sell, right? They're the hardest sell. And of course, the adoption, anyone working in the adoption industry is another hard sell. But, you know, once you come down to the science, and that's what we've done, is kind of looked at, you know, Bessel van der Kolk, for example, or Mark Wolin is another one. You know, they talk about this trauma and literally, and then talking to the therapist. You know, there are so many adoptees out there that are actually therapists now, Leslie Johnson and, you know, Macy Oosthuizen, and we talked with Marie Celeste, and, you know, all of these people who, you know, they have the details. They're dealing with adoptees who are in therapy. And, you know, it's that kind of information that we really need to get out. And so we are very big about sharing that kind of information, because really, you know, you can say, yes, it's cruel, right? But that's the piece that I learned was really about how to deliver that message. They don't hear that, right? All they know is, I can't have a baby and I want a baby. I want to be a parent. I deserve to be a parent. I have the money. And that's what they think. They're not putting themselves in that infant's shoes, or it's just not their perspective, right? And so what you have to do, and what I've learned is, and it doesn't always work, right? I mean, this stuff is exhausting to be talking to these people who really don't care what you have to say because they want what they want. But educating them, and once we have adopted parents that are Sisters on the Ground. One in Texas, she said, I found you guys by chance. We were going to adopt, and she's helped 2 families. She's been a Sister on the Ground to 2 families, and she's actually helped those 2 families actually were adoptees who were considering adoption for their babies.
I think that's so great too, and I'm glad you brought that up. And I'm just going to say something. It's not going to be a popular thing to say, but when I first came around the adoption community, I was almost like, it was like mind-boggling about this, like, war against, you know, adoptees and birth parents against adopted parents. And then what I've learned is, over the years, is like, we're all just human beings, like, dealing with different situations, and like, you know, saying, like, that's what I've learned. And like, yeah, like, you know, the whole, like, what I guess they call it a constellation now rather than a triad or whatever. But it's like, yeah, what if we all, like, work together to make this process not what it was? Yeah, you know, I don't know. Just, and, you know, I mean, obviously, I come from a family of where, you know, the state was involved with my mom. I mean, she had 8 of us. You know, it wasn't the typical, you know, struggling parent situation. It was like, you know, she had a lot of issues going on. So yeah, there's that aspect of things too.
Right. And that's,
Yeah.
but curtailing your message, right? Really knowing your audience, for example, is really key. And looking at, you know, taking a step back of who are you presenting this information to and how are they going to best receive it is really something that I had to learn over time. Like I said, those first 2 years I came out, I was one angry birth mom. I really was. I was one angry, bitter birth mom. I'm still angry. Don't get me wrong. I am still very angry and I'm still bitter, but I had to, you have to check that, right? When you're going out and talking, if you're going to have credibility and really, you know, have people hear you. So being able to back up your message.
I'm gonna remember that too. Yeah.
It's hard because like you have to step away, right? You hear that and you want to just react. And it's like, you have to literally just take a step back and go, okay, how can I logically approach this person and reason with them and get them to just consider what I'm saying, right? Because that's all you can do.
Renee,
And
Anne's asking of the mothers that you've helped, how many decided to go through with an adoption?
7 in 10 years. 7.
How many have you helped?
We have kept over 1,200 families together.
It's amazing. That gave me chills.
It's a lot. And, you know, one of the best ones that, you know, I did was one of the very first ones. This mom was living in her car. Marcie, you've heard this story, and Patty, I know you have, and probably some others, but she was living in her car and she was pregnant with her number 4 child. She was divorced, had a set of twins. And I just talked to her. This was back when it was just me, right? Reaching out, talking to people online. And I just listened to her and I'm like, you already had kids. You got this, right? You can do this. And so I said, why are you living in your car? She's like, I don't know. Like nobody kicked her in the pants, really. Nobody, what she told me, you know, is after she kind of came out of the other side of this, she said, nobody told me I could do it. Nobody believed in me. And she is now working at she's a product manager, working at Microsoft, making almost 6 figures a year. I helped her get her resume in line. She went back to school. She got her degree and we did like mock interviews. She's literally was working at one of the consulting firms that I was working at. Like, I mean, wow. You know, and all she needed was somebody to listen to her and tell her she could do it. And it was rough, you know, for those first 2 years. It wasn't just okay, I can, you know, you're going to do this, everything's going to be fine. We still have a relationship today. And, you know, we talk regularly, but the reason this is my most moving and the one that just gets me, a lot of them get me every time, but this one is, I was going out to one of my jobs was sending me over to Germany to one of our plants to go and talk to them. And I was flying through Charlotte. She lives in Charlotte. And she said, I'm going to bring the baby and I'm going to bring my oldest. I'm going to cry. Every time this happened. But I was sitting I went through security because they couldn't come in. And her oldest thanked me. And sorry guys, but seeing that her oldest was my daughter, right? My oldest daughter. And, you know, hearing Summer say thank you, it's just like, you know, that you just can't put a price tag on that stuff. And it's one of my favorite stories. So sorry.
You okay?
I'm good.
Leslie, you still there? Leslie Mitchell? You still on?
I don't know if oh, yep, she's
She's still on?
oh, we might have lost audio.
Renee, have you got any inquiries from Australia?
So I did I connected with Katie, actually connected me with Dr. Debbie Garrett. Have you heard of her?
Yes.
She and I've connected and talked, and she's a really cool lady, and she loves SOS and talks about us all the time. And ended up, I connected with a guy there named Dave Pello, and I did actually an interview with him, and that was he's he's a tough cookie, you know. They're very hot on the anti-abortion movement, pro-life movement, and that's not really our forte. You know, we don't have to discuss abortion because, at least here in the States, right, there's plenty of negative information out there about abortion, right? You are killing your baby, oh my God. But in a sense, adoption is kind of doing the same thing, to Keith's point, and to, you know, the other lady who mentioned the trauma. It's the same thing, right? You are literally damaging your baby, and it's a life sentence that you're, you know, giving them. So for us, I have never had to have the conversation about abortion with a mom. It's their right. They can go get that information. I want them to have all of that. They're going to have to, you know, I don't know, watch umpteen videos and sign 16 forms and make 3 trips to the, you know, place before they can have the abortion. So they're getting that informed consent, in my opinion. But and that's just, you know, that was a tough interview. So I have had moms come to us from the UK, some from the Philippines, some from Africa, but you know, I can't even keep up with the laws in the 50 states here. Like it's all over the board, and I have to look them up all the time because we don't even know when they're changing. Like in 2016, we ended up getting 2 babies back in Indiana, right? And for those of you that met me in 2017, when I presented in Indiana at their first conference, Becky, one of our moms, came and brought her son, and that was really cool because I usually don't get to meet the moms. But she brought her son, and we got to meet, and I got to meet her mom and stuff, and we're still in touch today. But anyway, you know, they switched the law between then and 2019 when I went to go and help another mom. And you know, it's things that are done under the radar. You don't really know when these things happen unless you're living there and living in that legislation. And Marcie, you know how buried, and you know, Pam and Marcie and all of you, you know as well, that legislation can just bury you and consume you, and it takes a lot to change that. So it's tough. So we're not global. I mean, I offer and put it out there all the time. Anytime we get a lot of inquiries from Canada, and so I, you know, tell them, look, if you want help setting up a sister, like a sister kind of nonprofit or something like that, I will help you. Yeah, let's do it. Kind of like, you know, Origins had something like that back in the day, right? They had Origin Scotland and Origins Canada. So yeah, I'm all about that. But we just can't do it.
Yeah. I just want to let you know that there is a program locally to me, only about half an hour away. There's a high school that has a special curriculum for expectant mothers and young mothers. Great. And then there's a house local to me that houses them, and I'm just about to volunteer. Great.
Yeah, if you want to send that information, we can even, you know, talk to Katie if that's something that she wants to start, you know, populating. I mean, I'm sure that we can figure out if you know, putting that on the website. More resources, the better.
Yeah, great. Okay, I'll do that.
Thank you, Leslie.
Thanks.
Okay, well, it's about that time. This is always happens, and the questions pick up, and we have to cut everybody off. But Renee, we've just really enjoyed having you this evening with us, and we appreciate all the hard work that you're doing for all the moms, and we're here to support you in any way that we can. And Keith, that was a really good idea about the brothers too. So yeah, we can't forget the guys, can we? But we really do appreciate you. So I'm going to be turning it over to Pam for just a second for her closing comment. Jennifer, could you pull the slide up for our next week's guest before I do that for Pam? Thank you. I just wanted to mention that next week's guest, we will be having Kevin Barheit. He's a best-selling author. His book just came out called Dear Stephen Michael's Mother. and I've just about finished the book. So he will be joining us next week. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Pam so she can
All
give
right.
final little thoughts.
Yeah, you guys won't see me next week. It'll be my birthday and I'll be in the Caribbean. No, I won't actually. I'll probably be on lockdown just like everyone else. But yeah, we enjoyed having you, Renee. I mean, I remember you having that mom at our conference and like, we're all like literally crying and, there's nothing like, and I'm going to probably cry, but yeah, I know. I know. That having that happen it's amazing. And to be able to do that 1 or a million times, it's worth it. So
That's Pam's comment for the evening. I will take her sign from there.
right. So right. Yeah. So that's my comment. Thanks everybody for coming tonight. And anything we can do to save babies, that's it, right? So and then we're putting up what is going to be our January 4th
Special holiday
I can't
episode.
even talk, gosh.
You want me to take it?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll pick it up. Okay, we're going to have a special, like we did for This Is Us. We're going to do, and we've been asked to do this. Lynn Grubb and Lorraine Pittman will be holding the conversation on the Queen's Gambit. If you haven't seen that on Netflix, that was an awesome series. It's really interesting. So mark your calendars for that, because that's an episode you won't want to miss on Monday the 4th.
Yeah, if you haven't watched it, watch it, because it is honestly, it's amazing. And it's not like what you think at all. So sink your teeth into it. Watch it. It's very, very good. Very good.
But we hope everybody has a great week. And
Yep.
like I said, Pam won't be here next week. It's her birthday. We're going to let her take a little break and celebrate. But we hope to see all of you back with us again next Friday night. So everybody have a great week. We appreciate you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Renee, stay on just for 1 second, please, if you could.
Thank you.
Night,
Bye,
guys.
All right. Are we good to go?
Yeah, we always like to keep our guests on and give you a
Yeah.
special hug and thank you again. It went really well.
It happens every time.
I don't even know why I lost it. It just went. I was totally fine, and it just
I
was
know.
like, boom.
Because it just happens.
I think it's because my birthday is coming up. It's like all hell breaks loose on your birthday. Oh,
But yeah.
Our
Yeah.
guest probably went, what the hell happened to her?
Yeah, I think we had 43 tonight, Renee.
That's great.
43. So we'll upload it later on and
Okay.
trim it up, and we'll put it out on our YouTube station. You can share it for in your network as well. You okay?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
Ed, you okay? Jennifer, you okay?
Oh, yeah.
I don't even know why I cried. I was good. I was totally fine. And
I
then
know.
I saw Renee's face and I went, ah.
I know.
If I wouldn't have seen her face, that would have been good.
My
There's
little.
a cutie. Hi.
Mommy, are you
Say
gonna
hi.
order Chinese?
Oh, she wants Chinese.
Oh, I do too.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again, honey. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks you guys so
Hi.
much. I really appreciate it. This was great.
Hi.
I will share the links in the YouTube replay too.
Okay, great.
All
All
right.
right, guys.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Bye-bye.
Night, everybody.
Bye.
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 Enjoy your dinner, Marcie.
So my dinner. Chinese sounds good.
Does sound good.
I'll see you later.
All right, bye.
Bye.